Audio formats, they exist. Some of them can kinda piss me off, but most of the time it doesn't matter what you pick and choose to listen to a song with. They all mostly sound great, except for a few, but most of them, yet again, are fine options. For most people, they either listen to streamed digital files, CD, or vinyl, but we'll get to that later, and let's talk about the phonograph cylinder. The phonograph cylinder is probably what most people consider the first audio format, despite the fact that it's not. We had these little tinfoil phonographs and rolls of paper that you put into a piano so it can play itself. But the phonograph cylinder is basically a wax cylinder with grooves in it that makes a play needle vibrate in a way that makes it transmit recorded audio through a hand-cranked player with a giant horn that I hope would amplify the music so the damn thing works as intended. These things were... how do I say this? Kinda shit, let's be fucking real. For one, they sound like shit. For a completely analog system from almost 120 fucking years ago, it's not entirely surprising, and as well, it was new technology. It was incredibly revolutionary. Shit, this same concept is still being used till this very day. There's also the fact that each one of these fucking things can only store 2 minutes of audio. Maybe 4, but mostly 2. Yeah, these things aren't gonna be able to fit a single Slint song, and they sound about as well as someone passing kidney stones through a tin can phone, but this was the root to how all music enjoyers like their music. Music enjoyers. I like that, that's staying. Yeah, that's right, we're talking about the vinyl record. Invented in 1897, we've got 7-inch, 78 RPM records which are made out of like hard rubber, apparently. And then like in 1901, they were sized up to 10 inches and now made of shellac. Wait, shellac? Albini reference? Like 2 years later, it got sized up to 12 inches. These take the same idea of the old phonograph cylinder, but make it a double-sided disc that can store 2 minutes of decent sounding audio per side, rather than a cylinder that can only record up to 2 minutes of shitty audio. Typically, these records can sound really fucking great, and let's be honest, they still do. The only bad thing about them is the recording technology we had at the time, where regardless of format, everything sounded like shit. But the technology was future-proofed. It was sort of cheap, I'd hope. It was just overall amazing to listen to music from. People later realized, however, that maybe just having 5 minutes per side on a 12-inch record is maybe not the best, especially for those weird people who listen to like fucking classical music. So they had the idea to just slow down everything. Meaning, sure, there may be less fidelity, but you're going to be able to record longer albums. So while a 12-inch 78 can record up to 10 minutes, a 12-inch 45 can record up to 30 minutes. This is how bands like DRI were able to record their first 17-minute album on a 7-inch by slowing everything down to 33 RPM. Despite the fact that having 44 minutes of music on one 33 RPM 12-inch record is plenty of fucking music. Some people wanted more, so rather than trying to slow this shit down even further, making everything sound like Satan's ass cheeks, some people just make albums with 2 whole-ass records, which, hey, fine enough, doesn't sound like shit and lasts for like an hour and 20 minutes now. Hey, I can't complain, despite the fact that I did. Let's move back to the 1930s, however, to talk about probably the most high-quality format to ever exist. The good old reel-to-reel. The reel-to-reel has been the standard for master recordings and top-tier audiophile grade music shit for the past like whatever amount of years at this point, I don't fucking know. They do have some caveats, however. 1, they're expensive as fuck. 2, pretty inconvenient to use compared to a vinyl record. And 3, vinyl is just superior in every way in terms of cost and effectiveness, despite the fact they may not sound as good. But the fact that it sounded fucking amazing, it became the standard for recording masters until this very day. There's a reason why people like Steve Albini only use reel-to-reel, as it has the best quality we can get from recordings. The fact that reel-to-reel is expensive as shit and kind of clunky to use, we decided to take that same technology and condense it into a so-called compact cassette in the 1960s. I'll get to the A-track, just shut the fuck up. Compact cassettes are, well, the same idea as a reel-to-reel. They're just little reel-to-reels packed into plastic shells. They became the gold standard of the 1970s and 80s for music, as they were not only rather cheap compared to vinyl, but also sounded decently okay-ish and could store up to 60 minutes per fucking side. I am not kidding, that is a lot of music. They were also perfect for consumer-grade recording, as tapes were cheap, unlike reel-to-reels. They had long run times, and it was even possible to record these with 4 separate tracks, with like one of those Tascam 4-track recorder things, making music production way easier for the consumer if they really wanted to ruin their lives for a cheaper price. Cassettes did, however, have a couple of drawbacks. For one, they didn't sound the best. Sure, it's possible to have different materials and layers of noise reduction to get the best possible sound out of them. But most people don't have that Dolby noise reduction, nor do they have Type 2 metal cassettes. But I mean, it was cheaper than vinyl. It could be like played on, went on a walk or in a car pretty easily, I guess. I don't know. Let's rewind a little bit to talk about the really shit piece of technology. Yeah, that's right, we're talking about the 8-track. Originally the 4-track in 1962, they were essentially the same thing as a cassette tape, but were endless loops, had the album fragmented into quarters, maybe eighths, I don't know, and I don't care, I don't fucking care, and they sounded like shit, broke all the time, and they were fucking awful to use. This shit deserves to be left in the past. I'm not talking about these fucking things any longer. By the 1980s, cassette and vinyl were still reigning supreme as they were the standard, and they just sounded great, especially for the time. But in 1982, we got into a new wave of audio formats where it brought in a new digital level to everything. If you couldn't tell already, I'm talking about the compact disc, or the CD. The CD was by far the best audio format at the time, where it could store close to 300 megabytes of digital audio, where it would be read from an optical laser, and for the time, it was completely revolutionary in terms of quality, convenience, and cost. In terms of audio quality, it's all pretty divisive. Some people think it sounds better, some people think it sounds worse, and also would be really fucking expensive. Yeah, these things weren't fucking cheap. In terms of production, fuck man, it might as well cost fractions of a cent. But CDs themselves and the players were laughably fucking expensive for the consumer. In the 80s, CDs costed around $60 fucking dollars, or a record at that time was just half of that. The price of them started dropping by the late 1980s and early 90s to whatever fucking $15 is in the 90s. I don't feel like doing the fucking math anymore. Alongside players starting to become more cheaper and smaller as well. Sure, cassettes were still cheaper and would be in production well into the 90s and 2000s, but the CD effectively killed off vinyl for a solid 20 years by being cheaper to buy once prices started to drop, as well as being more convenient. That's not to say vinyl was dead in the 90s and 2000s, because bands like Shellac and the Jesus Lizard would still put out on vinyl, but most bands stopped caring about vinyl in favor of CD and cassette. The CD also was more than just a music format. It could be used for streaming data, the same technology was used for the DVD and Blu-ray to stream video. All in all, it's pretty fucking revolutionary and is the root to a lot of formats today. To get back on topic, with that whole digital audio thing that CDs brought in, we were able to get completely digital audio without the disc. Yeah, that's right, we're getting into digital audio formats. We first got the audio interchange file format, or the AIFF file in 1988. Nobody uses these except for Mac users. In 1992, we got the WAV file, which, let's be fucking real, still sounds the best despite the fact that it's huge and is perfect for recording and playback with it being completely uncompressed. I don't know who was listening to WAV files back in the 90s, and I don't think most people had a fucking hard drive to play them in their computers, but it has been the gold standard for digital audio recording even until this very day. We then got the MP3 just a year later, which I'm not gonna get too much into now as I spoke about it a lot in the music piracy video, I think. But to summarize everything, it was made to make playing digital audio easier on hardware and more disk space efficient by compressing the ever-loving fuck out of the music. Losing a lot of fidelity, sure, but it had the upside of being just like 40 megabytes for one album. But the fact that it was uber compressed and easy on disk space, it made it great for, like, you know, fucking, I don't know, piracy and like ripping onto an Xbox, I don't know. But some people, like yours truly, thought that MP3s don't sound good enough. They sound too lossy. The treble sounds like warped dog shit. We want more. So we just got a metric fuck ton of digital audio formats like Windows Media Audio, True Audio Lossless Codec, Free Lossless Audio Codec, Ogg Vorbis, Advanced Audio Coding, Apple Lossless, Opus. We just got a huge ass variety of digital music formats, perfect for whatever your schizophrenic music enjoying ass wants. While some formats like Ogg Vorbis, MP3, and WMA were typically pretty lossy and had less fidelity than usual, formats like FLAC, TTA, M4A usually have some level of compression on them, with a higher degree of quality having lossless compression. And some weird fuckers like Wave and Raw, which is, as you probably know, is completely uncompressed. Nowadays, most people use digital streaming services like Spotify, but all they do is go to the server and play like an OGG file and stream it to you, or if you're using like Deezer or Tidal or whatever, doing the same with a FLAC file. And to avoid people in the comments from mentioning formats I missed, here's a list of them that I couldn't mention for the sake of video length. Music box disc, flexi disc, mini cassette, digital audio tape, digital compact cassette, very different formats, mini disc, and of course the good old hit clips. If I still miss something, fuck you.